Malaysia has tens of thousands of brand new empty houses, and yet the prices are not going down. Many average Malaysians can't afford to buy a home. So why are Malaysian homes so expensive? According to Khazanah Research Institute, there is currently an overhang of 32,810 residential properties in Malaysia. These houses are collectively worth 19.76 billion ringgit. Overhang meaning brand new but unsold after 9 months. Most of these units are condos and apartments, 42.7% of them. 36.7% are terraced houses, 12.5% are semi-detached houses. Low-cost houses and cluster houses make up just 4.5% and 3.7% respectively. Johor, Perak, Selangor and Penang in that order have recorded the highest overhang, while Terengganu, Kelantan and Perlis the least. In spite of this oversupply of houses, house prices are still rising, which goes against conventional ideas of supply and demand. Statistics show that the average prices have risen 313% between 2002 and 2016. And it's not just that houses are relatively expensive, they're statistically unaffordable. According to the World Bank and United Nations, a house is deemed affordable if it's priced at 3 times the annual income of a household. So if your household earns, say, 100,000 ringgit a year, an affordable house for you would cost 300,000 ringgit. Based on that ratio and median national incomes, Bank Negara's Director of Financial Surveillance says the maximum affordable house price is 282,000 ringgit. So it's no surprise that the latest data from Q2 of this year shows that houses above 300,000 ringgit make up 65% of unoccupied residential houses. So when and why did house prices start going up so much?
I think before 2009, it was relatively affordable. Since 2009, CAGR, house price index, has increased more than 8% per annum.
CAGR stands for Compound Annual Growth Rate. In this case, the rate at which house prices increase every year.
The reason why house prices went up very high is because of easy access to financing, because your mortgage repayment was lower, but your house loan tenure was longer.
This enabled people to buy houses priced beyond what they could afford, which prompted developers to build more houses at that elevated price range.
And therefore, we had rapid price escalation backed by demand, effective demand, which was backed by financing. Also during that time, there was a government policy for foreigners to be able to buy when it's more than 1 million. So if you're a developer, you would go into those markets because if you have, good land, why would you want to build houses for the 500,000 or 300,000 when you can participate in a high-end product of 1 million.
We see this in developments such as Forest City in Johor, which was created entirely for foreign purchasers. That might sound like profiteering from property developers, especially to those struggling to buy a simple home for shelter. But things are a bit more complicated than that.
If you look at the structure of the demand 10 years ago, when the boom really started to accelerate, we see that the demand for high-end properties was growing faster than the demand for the so-called affordable housing or medium-range houses. So the direction taken by entrepreneurs was not mistaken, was not wrong. They were driven by sound profit expectations. And this is all the more true in developing countries where eventually the rate of return can grow very fast at a certain stage.
But with the housing market now facing an oversupply, why aren't prices falling fast?
Market also exists of existing purchasers. They don't want the house prices to go down because this will make their equity go down as well. They will lose their equity. So this is a lot of distress on their part. The second factor is when the housing developer themselves have the confidence that they can still sell at these high prices to other parties, maybe some foreign parties. So when there's a confidence that they can still sell it, they will not reduce the price.
But foreign buyers is exactly what the government is encouraging. In a bid to solve the oversupply of houses, it has proposed reducing the threshold for foreigners to buy to just 600,000 ringgit. This pretty much set off a public spat between the developers and the home buyers, with the House Buyers Association saying, the duty of every government is to ensure that their citizens have access to affordable housing and not assist foreigners to buy properties cheaper compared to their home country. While the Real Estate and Housing Developers Association Malaysia dismissed these claims, saying, "We must look at it from the perspective of the industry as a whole. We don't want to have a situation where we have excessive inventory and developers cannot reinvest."
When houses are being bought by expatriates at 600 or 1 million, this vicious cycle will happen again. Remember the 2009 phenomenon, where all developers will move into this bracket and no developers will then be working or practicing in the 300,000 price bracket, which is the 3 median multiple for our people. It will price out local consumption because our exchange rate as compared to many other countries are lower. When our exchange rate is lower, it will ensure that people from other countries can easily buy our houses.
Another initiative put forth by the government is the rent-to-own scheme, which enables you to rent a new house for the first 5 years and convert that into a mortgage for the subsequent years without putting down a down payment.
We actually did a simulation of buying a house via the conventional way and buying a house via rent-to-own. In that calculation, it is very clear that you will be paying more when you do rent-to-own. But again, the point of having rent-to-own is because you don't have enough money to go for conventional loan, and therefore you pay less during the first 5 years or 10 years of your working life, and after that you can buy more when you have gotten further up in your career, and therefore you have more money, more salaries. This is something that's been done for the social sector in most countries. It should not be in the market sector for effective demand, because one should really save first before you actually buy a house. I think that is more prudent as well as more sustainable.
These schemes are only for houses above 500,000 ringgit, which basically means it's designed to get rid of the housing overhang, not necessarily to help with affordability. And don't forget, like what the doctor said earlier, easier financing options often lead to higher prices later on. And this rent-to-own scheme is pretty much a low commitment, no down payment financing option.
I think all projects done by developers must go through a feasibility study by professional valuers in order to ensure that you're targeting the number of units needed, the price range, is what effective demand really wants.
Another recent announcement by the government also addresses this. Minister Zuraida Kamaruddin said an integrated database would help prevent the issue of unsold houses as well as construction at non-strategic locations. This database allows the ministry to do analysis so that the houses will be built in accordance with the requirements and can be adjusted in terms of the design, prices, types, and so on.
I think if you have this database up and running and the housing need and demand assessment done at the local level, at the local council level, more products will be affordable and directed to groups that actually need it. And this will create a very sustainable housing sector.
The good news is that for the first time in 10 years, house prices started going down in 2018. Granted at a very slow rate, but this means that the market is starting to correct itself. The best thing us regular Joes can do? Just buy within our means and don't overdo the debt game. Then demand for overpriced houses will drop even more.